The cafe window was fogged from the cold outside, thin trails of steam rising from untouched coffee cups. The CEO sat alone, staring not at his laptop or phone, but at the reflection of his own tired eyes in the glass. His expensive coat did nothing to shield the weight he carried inside. Years of success, endless meetings, and silent penthouses had drained something vital from him. People thought loneliness belonged only to the poor, but he had learned, painfully, that wealth could buy silence, not comfort. Outside, snow began to fall softly, each flake reminding him of how quietly life could change without asking permission. She noticed him before she meant to. The young widow stood at the counter, fingers trembling slightly as she wrapped both hands around her cup, as if warmth could travel from ceramic to heart. Her eyes moved across the room and stopped at him, not because of his suit or his posture, but because of the exhaustion she recognized. It was the same look her husband wore in his final months. A man still breathing, still smiling sometimes, yet already halfway gone. Without realizing it, the words slipped from her lips when she passed his table. "You look tired, like my husband before he left." The words hung in the air, heavier than silence. The CEO looked up slowly, startled, not offended, not confused, but exposed. No one spoke to him like that anymore. People asked for favors, money, signatures. No one commented on his soul. She realized what she had said and stopped, embarrassment flushing her cheeks, ready to apologize or walk away. But he didn't stop her. He gestured to the empty chair across from him, his voice quiet, almost fragile. "Sit," he said. "Please." She hesitated. Years of loss had taught her caution. Yet something in his eyes felt familiar. Not dangerous, not arrogant, but broken in a way that didn't demand fixing. She sat. The cafe noises faded as if the world had decided to give them privacy. For a moment, neither spoke. Outside, a bus passed, splashing slush against the curb. Inside, two strangers shared a silence that felt strangely safe, like the pause between heartbeats when you're not sure what comes next. "My husband used to sit like that," she said finally, nodding toward the window. Staring through things instead of at them. Her voice didn't crack, grief had long since dulled its sharp edges. "He worked too much," said rest was something he'd earn later. The CEO's jaw tightened. He knew that sentence well, it had been his mantra for decades. Later never came. She smiled faintly, not bitterly, but with the tired kindness of someone who had forgiven life without forgetting. He told her he ran companies, but not their names. Titles felt meaningless here. She didn't tell him she struggled every month to pay rent. Status didn't matter at this table. Instead, they spoke of mornings that felt heavy, of nights that felt endless, of the strange guilt that came with surviving something that destroyed someone else. He admitted he slept in a house so quiet he sometimes left the television on just to hear another voice exist. She listened without interrupting, the way widows learn to listen, fully, gently, without trying to repair what cannot be repaired. He hadn't realized how long it had been since someone heard him like that. No agenda, no expectation, just presence. The realization made his chest ache. Success had surrounded him with people, but none of them truly stayed. Her wedding ring still hung on a thin chain around her neck. She touched it unconsciously as she spoke about the hospital room, the beeping machines, the promises whispered too late. He looked away, not because he was uncomfortable, but because her pain mirrored something he feared. He had spent his life outrunning loss, only to arrive at a future where there was no one left to lose. "You don't have to disappear," she said softly, as if reading his thoughts. "My husband did. Long before he died." The words weren't an accusation. They were a warning wrapped in compassion. He swallowed hard. No boardroom confrontation had ever shaken him like this. Minutes turned into an hour. Coffee went cold. Outside, the snow thickened. The CEO felt something unfamiliar settling into his chest. Not hope, not romance, but recognition. Two lives shaped differently, cracked in the same places. She wasn't asking him to save her. He wasn't asking her to stay. Yet something between them quietly insisted that this moment mattered. When she finally stood to leave, he felt a panic he hadn't known since childhood. "Will I see you again?" he asked, surprising himself. She paused, considering honesty over comfort. "I don't know," she said. "But I'm glad I saw you today." And somehow, that was enough to keep him breathing easier as she walked away. Days passed. The cafe became his ritual. Same window. Same table. He didn't expect her, yet he hoped. He began leaving work earlier, canceling meetings that suddenly felt less urgent than sunsets and human voices. The staff noticed the change. The mirror in the cafe window showed a man still tired, but no longer fading. When she returned a week later, carrying the same quiet strength, he smiled without thinking. She smiled back, not because she needed him, but because connection, once found, is hard to deny. They talked again, and again. Not every story was sad. Some were warm, some even made them laugh. He learned that healing didn't mean replacing what was lost. It meant allowing something new to exist beside it. She learned that companionship didn't betray love, it honored it by continuing to live. Seasons changed. Snow melted. The cafe window reflected spring light instead of winter shadows. They didn't rush. They didn't promise forever. They simply showed up. For the first time in his life, the CEO understood that rest wasn't earned. It was necessary. For the first time since her husband's death, the widow felt seen without being pitied. Their conversations grew deeper, but quieter. Less explaining, more understanding. He started mentoring less and listening more. She started dreaming again, carefully. No dramatic rescue. No grand declarations. Just two wounded people choosing presence over isolation. One evening, she reached across the table and held his hand, not to save him, but to remind him he was still here. He realized then that loneliness wasn't about being alone, it was about being unseen. The cafe remained the same. The world rushed on, but something inside both of them had shifted permanently. They never spoke of destiny. They spoke of today. They never promised forever. They practiced now. And that was enough. Sometimes healing doesn't arrive as medicine, but as conversation. Sometimes love doesn't rush in, it waits patiently at a cafe window. And sometimes, the tired recognize each other before the world does. Because broken souls speak a language only the wounded truly understand. Subscribe to this channel and like it, thank you.